I quote, "The increase in criminality must be looked at from the perspective of white-collar crime as well. It is not just about the poor man in Laventille with a gun, but about the money laundering which is taking place." End of quote. So, Mr. Speaker, here we have a gentleman, a former interim head of the Financial Intelligence Unit and a former head of the Central Authority for the Extradition and Mutual Assistance of the Attorney General, telling us that the increase in criminal activity in this country is about more than just simply the development of gang warfare and gang-related violence. And Mr. Speaker, the enthusiasm of the dancer is of no consequence if the step is out of time. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of National Security is entirely misguided if he thinks that putting powers of arrest in the hands of soldiers will make a serious dent in a crime problem that is acknowledged by experts and laypersons alike to be about much more than the man in Laventille with a gun. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of National Security said that there is a murder in Laventille. There's a spin-off when there are murders in Laventille. Yes, he mentioned that when there are murders in Laventille, there is a spin-off to the community at large. Okay? And therefore, of course, they have to lock down Laventille. He loves Laventille when it suits him. Here they're talking about hoop of life and so on. All of a sudden, they love Laventille, Mr. Speaker. But yet, he blames Laventille for the crime problem in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Speaker, no wonder the minister attributed 41% of murders to Laventille. Is Laventille the Port-of-Spain division? This is totally wrong, Mr. Speaker. As of today, no 41% of murders took place in Laventille. That is incorrect, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, what the minister needs to talk about is the distribution of contracts to criminal elements in Laventille. This is what is happening, Mr. Speaker, and this is what is needed to be talked about. And Mr. Speaker, permit me to use the analogy of a river flowing into the sea, or to be more precise, streams flowing into rivers and rivers into sea. By repeatedly focusing on Laventille, Sealots and Ibiza, and by steadfastly refusing to acknowledge the connection between violent gangs at the bottom of the crime food chain and non-violent gangs at the top of the food chain, the Honourable Minister is trying to stop the crime wave at the point where the river flows into the sea. And we can all imagine how ineffective that could be. Mr. Speaker, the last PNM administration tried to stop the flow of guns and drugs into this country at its source. In other words, at the stream stage. And we purchased OPVs, invested in training and manpower, and what did this People's Partnership government do? They cancelled the OPV contract. Now they act all surprised at the escalation in violent crimes. And then they come here and say, no, violent crimes, it's not going up, Mr. Speaker. The only solution they can offer the nation is to put police powers in the hands of soldiers. Why not focus on the importers and distributors of firearms and narcotics? In other words, the big fish. Why not focus on strengthening the institution of the justice system? I dare say that without a similar and simultaneous focus at the stream end of the crime chain, Mr. Speaker, all this huff and puff about giving soldiers power of arrest to arrest people at the river end crime chain will accomplish nothing. And in the not too distant future, we will be back here debating another equally impotent so-called crime plan. We can do much better than that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister in his statement in this House said that, and I quote, "A large contingent of highly skilled personnel."
Excuse Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to hear the member for Laventille East, please. 40B and C. I rise on 40B and C, please. I'm hearing everything.
Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, they don't want to hear what I have to say, so they have to talk. I understand. Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Minister, in his statement in this House, stated, and I quote, "A large contingent of highly skilled personnel who possess expertise in defense operations are currently underutilized by the state. End of quote. I would like to know, what is the magic line below which defense personnel are considered to be underutilized? Is he saying that the members of the defense force are sitting twiddling their thumbs because we happen to be at peace, because there is no state of emergency currently in force? Mr. Speaker, I read where the minister, in justifying this bill, states, and I want to quote the Minister of National Security again. During the state of emergency in 2011 in Trinidad and Tobago, members of the defense force were conferred powers of arrest by the president under the Emergency Powers Regulations 2011, pursuant to Section 7 of our Constitution. This ultimately led to an increase in the manpower of approximately 5,000 additional personnel to work in tandem with the police service. 5,000 more soldiers were able to work with the police service during the state of emergency when the president gave them that power. End of quote, Mr. Speaker. But I have one question to the minister, Mr. Speaker. What exactly did that accomplish? We would not be here today debating this bill if the 5,000 defense force personnel working with the police were effective back in 2011. And if 5,000 defense force personnel working in the police service under emergency conditions didn't lead to a sustained decline in crime, by what magic wand will 1,000 or how much ever that they want to choose with powers of the police lead to a sustained decline in crime? I would like the minister to answer that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the defense force in itself is made up of around 5,200 persons. So I don't know how 5,000 soldiers could have been on the street. Where did they come from, Mr. National Security? Mr. Speaker, without discussing the value of the airship, as I have done in the past, this government removed the nation's preeminent surveillance platform, where it ill-advisedly sold the airship for pennies on the dollar. Mr. Speaker, over the past 5 years, the United States government has spent $1.9 billion for 4 surveillance airships. And these airships are moored to the ground with Kevlar cables, and they provide 360-degree surveillance that can reach 340 miles and do other precision tracking. Mr. Speaker, as this government moves to militarize our nation, I think that there are lessons to be learned from Mayor Emanuel's flexibility in Chicago. And we need to know whether the government will realize their mistake like the mayor of Chicago did and at least move to immediately reconstitute the organizations that were addressing gang matters and crimes of national significance. Mr. Speaker, the results have been stark. We are seeing increased murders in areas that were well secured because of the presence of both dismantled organizations. Increasingly, drugs, guns, and ammunition are unabatedly flowing into Trinidad and Tobago. And the murder rate is now around 90. Yet, the government is still playing numbers game, declaring every day that there is a decrease in violent crimes. Mr. Speaker, I just want to talk a bit on the responsibility of the Commissioner of Police. And the Minister, the member for Overreach, he said that we don't give suggestions and so on. I always give suggestions and recommendations when I speak, Mr. Speaker. I am not here to oppose for opposing sake. Mr. Speaker, experience has shown that crime is reduced by having more boots in the streets, and I believe that we all agree on that. I wish to advise the Minister of National Security to reduce the number of police officers doing clerical work, increase police visibility and presence through increased foot patrols, which should be supported by vehicle patrols, reduce the number of police officers in the stations, provide the nation with a plan to have increased foot patrols and visibility in high crime areas, inform this honorable House which commanding officers are being held responsible and accountable for the increased murder rate within their divisions. Inform us what are the repercussions for division officers whose policing techniques are not leading to reduction in crime. Inform us how effectively division commanders are using the spatial and temporal data generated by CAPA. Indicate how many division commanders are computer literate and personally use the computer to review CAPA information. What is being done to improve the ridiculously low detection rate that exists now? Explain to this House his involvement and knowledge of the alleged reformulation of the flying squad. Mr. Speaker, the increase in murders requires fundamentally sound action by the police service. A knee-jerk reaction, such as the granting of police powers to the military, is not the answer. This country deserves a police service and a police commissioner that are focused on implementing tried and proven policing techniques to arrest the increasing levels of crime. This is not a time to play politics, Mr. Speaker. Imagine both the Minister of National Security and the hierarchy of the police service implement programs geared at crime reduction in certain constituencies, Laventille and so on, without even the courtesy of having a discussion with the Member of Parliament. Well, I understand that the Minister of National Security would have a political agenda, but what agenda does a Commissioner of Police have and a police service for not speaking with the Members of Parliament about programs that they are saying is being initiated by the police service? What's the reason for that, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we would like to see our military doing what it is constituted to do. Therefore, the proper and strategic deployment of military manpower and their associated assets could have an effective role in the reduction of drugs, guns, and ammunition. Furthermore, it is well known that the reduction of illegal drugs on the streets does not have a favorable impact on a country's level of crime and violence. And we know that our country is crying out for, and our citizens are entitled to, a safe and secure life. The heightened crime and violence also contributes to the rise in the cost of living and, of course, the cost of doing business. Mr. Speaker, given the increased violence in our beloved land, we call on the Minister of National Security to inform the country as to how the nation's air and maritime assets are being used to stem the inflow of guns, drugs, and ammunition. We don't need to know about the use of the helicopter. We know that part already. Mr. Speaker, the anti-crime unit. The government continues to refer to the special anti-crime unit as an illegal one. The Minister of National Security has oftentimes referred to the involvement of soldiers in SORT as being illegal. So it would be remiss of me if I didn't reiterate to this body that in establishing SORT, the PNM government consulted with the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation, the United Kingdom Special Organized Crime Agency, which the Member of Parliament for Shogunas West mentioned, and the Crown Prosecutor's Service. Mr. Speaker, the Special Anti-Crime Unit of Trinidad and Tobago was an intelligence-based law enforcement body. It was established to bolster the crime-fighting capability in Trinidad and Tobago by providing specialist support to partner agencies. Mr. Speaker, the organization was given a specific mandate to target crimes. Mr. Speaker, I am being disturbed by members on the other side.
Members, please allow the Honourable Member for Laventille East to speak in silence. Continue, Honourable Member for Laventille East, move on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I will continue to speak about the Special Anti-Crime Unit of Trinidad and Tobago. The organization was given a specific mandate to target crimes of national significance, including gang warfare, kidnapping for ransom, extortion, organized crime, and terrorism. SORT was also given a responsibility to maximize the use of technology to enhance the investigative capacity of law enforcement. Mr. Speaker, I have spoken many times in this House about the benefits of SORT, so I will not go into that again, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they are too ashamed to admit that they know why they dismantled such an important unit, Mr. Speaker. Clearly, they have to be ashamed, because I would have been if that is the case. And Mr. Speaker, by the removal of SORT, a new kind of vicious criminality has emerged. Example, that decapitation of the man's head. And this government must take full responsibility for the increase in crime in this country. They had the solution to crime, and they must take full responsibility because of the dismantling of SORT, Mr. Speaker.